As of today, May 23rd, 2026, we are witnessing the conclusion of one of the most significant military campaigns in modern history. And the weapon that made it all possible is not what you think. Everyone expects advanced stealth fighters, cutting-edge hypersonic jets, and next-generation weapon systems to dominate the headlines. But the reality of what's happening right now in the Iran conflict tells a completely different story. The most devastating force operating in this theater is a massive, ungainly aircraft that first took to the skies in 1952, decades before most people watching this video were even born. This is the B-52 Stratofortress, and for 84 consecutive days, it has been systematically dismantling Iran's entire military infrastructure with relentless, methodical precision. The numbers are staggering. The B-52 does not look intimidating. It does not move with the grace of a modern fighter jet. It does not feature cutting-edge stealth technology. What it does possess is something far more valuable in this conflict. Raw, concentrated, devastating power. A single B-52 can carry 70,000 pounds of ordnance. That is 35 tons of explosives, advanced guided munitions, and cruise missiles in one flight. By comparison, the F-35 stealth fighter, celebrated as the crown jewel of modern aviation, carries between 10 and 15,000 pounds maximum. One B-52 delivers 3 to 5 times more firepower than a modern fighter jet. Think about that for a moment. While everyone was focused on the flashier, faster, more technologically advanced aircraft, the old workhorse from the Cold War was doing the real work. The story of how this happened is the story of a strategic shift in modern warfare. For decades, military plans believed that precision meant small, targeted strikes with advanced technology. Then, they learned something crucial. When facing a military-industrial complex, you do not win by hunting individual weapons. You win by destroying the factories that build those weapons. This is what military strategists call targeting the production base, and it is exponentially more effective than any other approach. Here is what happened. Iran entered this conflict with approximately 2,500 ballistic missiles. On paper, that sounds formidable, terrifying even. But the moment the B-52 campaign began, that arsenal became a finite resource. Every missile launched represented one that could never be replaced. Every drone destroyed was gone forever. No new production meant no replenishment. The entire foundation of Iran's military strategy began crumbling in real time. The epicenter of this destruction was the Kuwa Barmale facility near Firon. This was not a storage depot or a launch site. This was the actual factory where Iran built its missiles. Satellite imagery obtained by CENTCOM shows the transformation from functional industrial complex to complete devastation. Before the campaign, the facility sprawled across the landscape, with intact assembly halls, administrative buildings, vehicle parking areas, and comprehensive security infrastructure. The facility was operating at full capacity, pumping out ballistic missiles designed to threaten American naval assets and Israeli cities. Then came the B-52s. The after images are stunning in their destruction. Assembly halls have collapsed inward on themselves. Walls lie in shattered heaps across the ground. Massive craters, some exceeding 50 feet in diameter, scar the landscape where precision-guided bombs struck critical structural points. Burned-out buildings and debris fields stretch across what was once a functioning, productive facility. The complex that once represented Iran's technological pride is now nothing but rubble and ruin. What makes this so significant is that destroying a factory is not like destroying individual weapons. A factory represents capability, potential, and future threat. When that factory becomes nothing but twisted metal and concrete dust, the threat does not just diminish, it vanishes. The B-52 campaign quickly expanded beyond Kuwa Barmale. multiple drone production plants fell victim to the sustained bombing campaign. These were not small workshops run out of warehouse spaces. These were full-scale industrial operations with specialized assembly lines, component storage facilities, testing areas, and quality control systems. Reuters reported that Iran's drone production capacity has been reduced by approximately 90%. Ammunition storage depots were systematically targeted and destroyed. Munitions factories that supplied Iran's military were leveled. Underground command centers used by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to coordinate operations were collapsed by massive penetrating bombs. What Admiral Brad Cooper told the United States Senate shocked many observers. He stated plainly that Iran's defense industrial base is now approximately 90% destroyed. Think about the enormity of that statement. 90%. The entire foundation of Iran's ability to wage sustained military operations lies in ruins. This was not achieved through conventional warfare against deployed forces. This was achieved through one of the most comprehensive targeting campaigns in military history. The data surrounding the campaign validates Admiral Cooper's assessment completely. Ballistic missile launches dropped by 86% in the first 4 days after the heavy bombing campaign began. That is not a gradual decline. That is a dramatic, immediate collapse in offensive capability. Drone attack launches fell by 73%. Fast attack boat presence in the Strait of Hormuz plummeted from approximately 40 boats per observation period down to just 2 or 3. These are not modest decreases. These numbers represent the systematic dismantling of everything Iran built to threaten global commerce and American military assets. Yet the campaign was carefully structured. Military planners understood from the beginning that this would unfold in distinct phases, each building on the foundation of the previous one. Phase 1 was the most critical, crushing Iran's military capability hard enough that it could no longer threaten American ships or regional infrastructure at any meaningful scale. That phase executed with remarkable success. The B-52s flew day after day, night after night, from RAF Fairford in Britain. This base choice was strategically brilliant. Flying from England reduced the round-trip distance by thousands of miles compared to launching from continental American bases. Less fuel consumption meant more ordnance per mission. More ordnance per mission meant more targets destroyed. More targets destroyed meant faster degradation of Iranian capabilities. The decision to operate from British soil also carried deep diplomatic weight. It demonstrated that the transatlantic alliance remained ironclad, despite some European political hesitation about the campaign. The image of B-52s thundering down British runways at dawn, crossing thousands of miles of ocean, striking targets inside Iran by midday, and returning to RAF Fairford by evening, became a powerful symbol of this enduring partnership. It also sent a message to Iran that this was not a unilateral American operation, but an international effort with NATO backing. We are now in Phase 2 of the campaign, and this phase looks completely different from Phase 1. Phase 1 was about massive destruction, overwhelming force, and systematic annihilation of production capacity. Phase 2 is slower, more surgical, and more persistent. It focuses on keeping the Strait of Hormuz open against leftover threats that survived the initial onslaught. These include remaining fast attack boats hiding in coastal caves, surviving mobile missile launchers operating from concealed positions, and scattered Iranian naval units attempting to harass commercial shipping. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth used 3 powerful words that perfectly capture what has been built over these 84 days: red, white, and blue dome. That word dome is not metaphorical. It represents a comprehensive defensive umbrella covering the airspace, the sea surface, and the subsurface waters across a wide operational area. Inside this dome, American and coalition forces now maintain active control. The results are measurable and extraordinary. 91 commercial ships have been safely redirected away from Iranian ports. 4 vessels that refuse to comply have been disabled. Mine clearance operations are actively underway, supported by specialized ships from allied nations, including Japan. The weapons being employed are remarkable. The GBU-72, a 5,000-pound bomb, has already collapsed underground missile tunnels along the Iranian coast. The Helios directed energy laser weapon deployed on American destroyers is making Iran's remaining fast attack boats and drone swarms increasingly ineffective. We are seeing the future of naval warfare right now, with lasers operating alongside traditional kinetic weapons, creating a layered defense system that Iran has no answer for. Subscribe to Eliza Grant Reports and hit the notification bell because this situation is evolving daily, and you will want to know exactly what happens next as it unfolds. The developments we are tracking right now will reshape global politics for years to come. But the picture becomes even more concerning when you look at Iran's internal situation. On CBS News, sources revealed that Iran's supreme leader has not been seen in public for 3 months. He now communicates exclusively through pre-recorded messages and social media posts from what intelligence agencies believe is a secure bunker. Inside Iran, tensions are boiling over. The IRGC and the regular Iranian army have engaged in armed confrontations in at least 4 different cities since the bombing campaign intensified. The regime has arrested over 6,500 people since February 28th in an attempt to suppress growing internal resistance and dissent. The government has carried out 29 executions as part of this crackdown. The military is also deteriorating from within. Iran's navy is operating at roughly 40% capacity. The IRGC is struggling to pay its soldiers on time, creating tremendous morale problems among the rank and file. Most damning of all, there is clear division at the top of the Iranian power structure. The civilian government speaks publicly about mutual respect and diplomacy with the United States. Meanwhile, the IRGC's national security leadership continues to speak about America's inherent bad faith. These contradictory messages reveal fundamental disagreements about how to respond to the crisis. This brings us to the most critical element remaining on the table: Iran's nuclear material. Approximately 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% purity is stored in a tunnel complex outside Isfahan. The IAEA lost access to this site on February 28, 2026, right at the moment the bombing campaign intensified. A WC-135R nuclear sniffer aircraft is currently monitoring atmospheric radiation from Al Udeid base in Qatar. Every detection, every measurement is being logged and analyzed. This enriched uranium represents the last significant leverage the IRGC possesses. Everything else, their missile factories, their production lines, their conventional military capacity, has been systematically dismantled. The diplomatic landscape has shifted dramatically as well. On May 22, 2026, just yesterday, a moment of extreme tension nearly changed everything. The House of Representatives scheduled a vote on a war powers resolution that would have severely restricted President Trump's ability to continue military operations against Iran. Republican leadership pulled the vote at the last moment because they knew they did not have the numbers to defeat it. Some Democrats, along with a handful of Republicans, had been pushing hard to force Trump to halt the campaign unless Congress formally approved its continuation. They came remarkably close to succeeding. The vote was delayed until June after the Memorial Day recess, which means the military campaign continues without interruption. Legally and practically, this matters enormously. Even if a similar measure eventually passes in June, President Trump can veto it. Overriding that veto would require a 2/3 majority in both chambers of Congress, a threshold that currently looks unreachable based on current political alignments. So the military campaign continues. The B-52s keep flying, The red, white, and blue dome remains in place. The pressure on Iran remains relentless and undiminished. What comes next is where things become truly dramatic. The B-52 has done the heavy lifting over these 84 days, but newer and more specialized capabilities are now being positioned for what comes next. At RAF Fairford, B-1B Lancer bombers have joined the operation, carrying a brand new combat capability that has never been deployed in live operations before. External pylons are configured for hypersonic missiles, weapons that travel faster than 5 times the speed of sound. The kinetic energy generated when a missile moving at that velocity strikes a hardened target is exponentially greater than a conventional bomb, relying on gravity alone. The physics are revolutionary. For underground facilities that survived earlier strikes, because they were buried too deep for even the GBU-72 to fully penetrate, hypersonic weapons fundamentally change the problem. The B-52s collapse the entrances and seal the complexes. The penetrating bombs shake the mountains from within. If a next wave of strikes becomes necessary, the hypersonic missiles on the B-1Bs are ready to address whatever hardened targets remain beyond the reach of previous weapon systems. Beyond the bombers, approximately 2,500 highly trained Marines are positioned for operations in the region. These forces specialize in amphibious assault and small-scale precision raids. Operating from ships offshore, they can launch helicopter-borne operations to destroy specific remaining targets that are too small or too mobile for heavy bombers. They can clear out fast attack boats hiding in coastal caves, eliminate scattered mobile missile launchers, and neutralize small IRGC command posts. Think of the B-52 as the wrecking crew that brings down the building. The Marines are the team that moves through the rubble to clear out whatever is still hiding inside. But the most significant development may be what is being prepared in absolute secrecy. Delta Force operators have been positioned throughout the Middle East since March 2026. The Washington Post reported that the Pentagon has already briefed President Trump on a plan to physically insert forces into Iran to secure the enriched uranium complex outside Isfahan. Netanyahu stated on CBS that Trump personally told him he wants to go in and believes it can be done. Trump himself confirmed on Full Measure with Cheryl Atkinson that they will get that uranium at some point, and that anyone who tries to interfere will be dealt with decisively. This enriched uranium is the IRGC's last real bargaining chip, their nuclear card. The entire B-52 campaign, combined with the broader military pressure, has been designed with laser focus on stripping away every other piece of leverage Iran possesses. When the missile factories are rubble, the tunnels collapsed, and the conventional forces degraded, only one issue remains on the negotiating table: give up the uranium or face the consequences. The old bomber from the 1950s has created the conditions where that simple, stark choice becomes the only one available. Let me put the entire strategic picture together in the simplest possible terms. Iran built its entire military strategy around 2 core foundational ideas. The first was to hide its missiles deep underground in fortified tunnels where they believed nobody could reach them. The second was to turn the Strait of Hormuz into a weapon, threatening to close it at will, and trapping American ships while destroying them with coordinated swarms of missiles, drones, and fast attack boats. The B-52 Stratofortress, along with the broader American and coalition campaign, has systematically destroyed both ideas completely. The missile factories are now rubble fields. The underground tunnel entrances have been collapsed by heavy penetrating bombs. Production lines that once churned out ballistic missiles and attack drones sit silent and destroyed. Launch rates have plummeted by 86%. Iran's 2,500 missile arsenal is no longer renewable. It is a wasting asset, depleting with every single shot fired and never being replenished. Every missile they launch is one they will never replace. The first idea lies in ruins, buried under tons of concrete and twisted steel, At sea, the situation is similarly dramatic. The red, white, and blue dome now dominates the Strait of Hormuz. 91 commercial ships have been safely redirected away from Iranian threats. Mine clearance operations continue methodically. The remaining fast attack boats have been reduced from 40 per observation period to just 2 or 3. The naval blockade Iran had dreamed of has been broken completely. The second strategic idea is also collapsing under the weight of sustained military pressure. Iran's ability to threaten global commerce through the Strait has been eliminated. All of this has been made possible by an aircraft that first flew in 1952. An aircraft that is neither stealthy, nor supersonic, nor particularly beautiful to look at. Yet, day after day, it has crossed oceans, delivered 35 tons of precision ordnance, returned to base, refueled, reloaded, and done it all over again. The B-52 has not only struck targets, it has created the conditions for everything that follows. The Marine Expeditionary Unit raids, the hypersonic strikes from B-1Bs, the directed energy weapons on naval destroyers, and the eventual securing of Iran's enriched uranium. The nickname that B-52 crews gave their aircraft, the big, ugly, fat fellow, has become almost affectionate in its accuracy. The Buff was never supposed to be the star of this conflict. Military strategists expected that advanced stealth aircraft, sophisticated electronic warfare systems, and next-generation guided weapons would dominate the headlines. But it has quietly become the most important player. The B-52s are still at RAF Fairford. They are still loaded and ready. They will keep flying as long as necessary. The diplomacy continues. The negotiations proceed. Phase 3 is being actively prepared through channels we are only beginning to understand. Don't miss a moment of this unfolding story by subscribing to Eliza Grant Reports right now. Because what happens in the next few weeks will determine the entire future direction of Middle Eastern security and global energy markets. The Buff is ungainly. It is fat. It does not look modern. It does not feature cutting-edge technology written about in aviation magazines. But it is winning. It is winning decisively. It is winning absolutely. And that is the story of how an old Cold War bomber became the decisive weapon in one of the most important conflicts of the 21st century. Everything changed when that aircraft took to the skies 84 days ago. Everything is about to change again when the next phase begins. Watch this space carefully. History is being written in real time.